Thank you. And while the panel gets together for a group photo, which they can't escape, we're going to set up for the next discussion. And before that, a keynote from Mr. K. Sanjay Murthy, Secretary, Department of Higher Education, Government of India. Yesterday onwards, since yesterday we have been speaking heavily on how to transform education and how critical it is for the energy transition. So we're going to talk about it on a panel, which is going to focus on whether this change of a regime coming through technology is going to cause empowerment or disenfranchisement. But before that, we are going to hear Mr. Sanjay Murthy deliver his keynote on how he's transforming really, the whole higher education system to make it industry responsive at a time when we need the energy transition to happen at a very quick pace. So, Mr. Murthy, may I invite you? You can take it, the thing there or here, whichever way you are comfortable.
Good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, I'd like to thank Anish Dey and his team for giving me this opportunity to present what the Education Ministry is doing to address skilling as well as expertise in this very, very important sector. I started off the day by again inaugurating a capacity building workshop on use of AI in day-to-day administration. Okay, that was for all the officials of the Education Ministry. Similar workshops are being handled all over educational institutions in the leadership programs that are being conducted and are being conducted by quite premium institutions, management institutions of our country, including IIMs and IITs. The reason I tell you that is that we are in mid of the week of a week-long program wherein all employees are required to upgrade their skills on various facets of administration and in their workplace. This was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister last Saturday, and everybody is in that endeavor to upskill themselves. So how is all this relevant to what we are discussing today? This again comes out from a very good discussion that we had with Ashish Dey and his team with the Minister on this aspect of energy transition. And what is it that our educational institutions need to do in furtherance of that? It was a pro bono activity from him and his team to put together a framework with IIT Delhi, and I think later in the day you will have him as a panelist to speak on the actual rollout of that type of a strategy to skill ourselves. This title of Future of Work, we've given it to many segments. One is Manufacturing 4.0, one is on agriculture, one is on logistics, one is on health. So what might really pertain to us today is on the energy, logistics and manufacturing piece. In all these sectors, they're all led by premium institution of ours. The energy one is led by IIT Delhi with a cohort of industry representatives in designing this framework and curriculum, not only at the high end, but really at the level from where actually work starts. Now, to give you an example, I won't take the energy one because they'll expand on it further, but looking at what we have done for manufacturing, the endeavor is to ensure that what the industry requires is actually delivered by the academic institutions. Now we have 2-3 platforms to ensure that this is delivered. One is that you have this Swayam Plus platform where I think the director IIT Madras gave did talk about it to you, all of you, and I think did make this request asking that if there is any content that needs to be provided and delivered to students, that is the platform to use and deliver. And if there is a specific type of content that you require, which is specific to the industry, please join hands with them to either design it yourself and provide it on the platform, or give them the responsibility to design it and give it to them such that it reaches the largest segment of population. Having said that, we do not see a situation where the academic institutions do not deliver it firsthand at site at their location. So therefore, there will be a call for proposals from these institutions to design courses and deliver it not only in their institution but to the institutions in or around their vicinity. This example we take from some paradigm shifts that's happening in the education sector, wherein all projects are being bid out or entrusted after a good challenge method selection process, be it the recent Center of Excellences in AI that we launched last week with the Education Minister, but also within institutions selecting projects which are relevant to industry, which have translational research importance. It's not as if the institutions are not now reaching out to to industry to identify what are their priorities, to design curriculum as well as research for their needs. I'll just give you two examples. Kotak, through their CSR fund, has provided a substantial amount for looking at energy efficiencies in MSMEs. Now, this is happening in active collaboration with academia. The second one is, as an example, is of Bajaj Auto, to talk about how manufacturing 4.0 needs to be provided across institutions to build up capacities. We see that there is a large interest of industry to come and collaborate with academic institutions to design these relevant courses. You would have heard recent courses being even launched by IIM Bangalore called Digital Business Entrepreneurship Programs, which will address the entrepreneurship talent that is required to take this right up to the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in such type of a sector. So unless we address all segments of the skilling requirement of this rapidly changing scenario, we will not be able to meet the requirement of the industry. In addition to that, we have also got a great group working on ISET, that is initiative on critical emerging technologies, wherein semiconductors, sustainability, manufacturing 4.0, critical minerals, these are all key topics that again a group of leading institutions are working on. They're collaborating with many of the best universities abroad, and centers of excellence in partnership with these universities are being set up as we speak. Quite a few have been already set up, and we see a great opportunity for greater collaboration between industry, academia, and academic institutions going forward. Similarly, the guidelines pertaining to inviting foreign universities to set up campuses in the country has evinced a lot of interest amongst leading universities across the globe, ensuring that high quality institutions which have capabilities, academic capabilities and scholarship in the topics that we are discussing do come and set up campuses here to provide opportunities to both the faculty as well as students of our country. Now, the bottom line to entire discussion that will follow suit is that academia is, I think, ready to work with industry to deliver the type of content that industry requires to ensure that we are able to be ahead of the curve of this entire transition that is going to happen in the energy sector. AI, which is the theme of it, is firmly embedded in all programs that the government and the institutions are running or will be launching. And hopefully, we will be looking to your support in designing it and funding some of these programs as per the examples I gave you. The earlier session talked about not knowing where capital should invest in. I'm sure if you can convince all of them to keep out a small portion on skilling, you'll find good opportunities to ensure that they really meet the demand of the industry. So once again, thank you so much. I think it's a brilliant effort to ensure that you're bringing academia, industry, and for thinkers in this very, very crucial field together. We'd like to again reiterate that all the institutions are right at the forefront in this matter and look forward to this engagement with you going forward further. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Murthy. It's this conversation has really become multidimensional, and I'm really grateful for the government to really support this conversation the way they have, with the openness they have. We now go into the core issue which we wanted to talk about: how technology affects, whether it disempowers or whether it enables. And my colleague, partner Reena Wahi, is going to moderate that panel. I'm going to let her call her panel over and take over from here.
Thank you, Anish, and thank you, Mr. Murthy, for setting up the stage for this panel. We've been hearing a lot since morning about, how much is the demand in the energy going up. We're going to be increasing by 4% every year. We have Department of Education focusing so much on the capability development, specifically on upskilling. There is an article which came some time back which talked about energy sector, especially renewable, creating almost 3.4 million new jobs in India. And we've been talking about AI, which is artificial intelligence. And I think it's in amidst all of this, it is important to talk about human capital and human intelligence. So to discuss that topic and the impact on the job, I call upon my esteemed panel. We have Mr. Raghunath Mishra, Chief General Manager, Oil India, who is representing Mr. Dr. Ranjit Rath, who's not been able to make it to the stage. I call upon Mr. Shantanu Dikshit, member Prayas Energy Group. He's a member with the Prayas, and he's been focusing a lot on terms of working towards energy policy and regulatory framework, and also towards a lot of consumer advocacy as an area. I call upon Mr. Ajay Tripathi. He is the CHRO for Renew Energy. He's been associated with various companies for the last 27 years, and you heard Sumant speaking in the morning, and we'll dwell a lot in terms of what's happening in Renew Power. And followed by that is my esteemed colleague, Mr. Jonathan Peacock. He is the Global Head of Oil and Gas and Global Sector Head of Shell. So thank you, everybody. So starting you with Ajay, because Suman gave a very interesting, paradigm today in terms of what's happening within the various segments of AI being used as AI use case within Renew Power. And you're also one of the companies which have been recently recognized as future-ready organization. So how are you looking at this entire renewable energy space and the jobs getting really impacted and being changed in terms of its structure due to AI itself?
Thank you for that question. I think when we look at it from a Renew perspective, we have tried to look at updating. So for example, job families. Now, job families definitely get impacted with the introduction of AI and how we are trying to incorporate it. So right from that level, once we modify the jobs, obviously the next stage is what is the competence that is required to deliver on that job, which feeds into how we are looking at the entire learning activity within the organization and how we go across and do it. And to my mind, all this is on the bedrock of what is the digital investment that has already been made within the organization or which we are trying to pursue in terms of our working capability across the stream of work. Now, recently, and I think quite a few researchers have clearly shown that AI is not the one which is going to impact jobs, but AI-equipped individuals are definitely going to impact the people who have not been able to make that transition and not being able to combine that. So I think our endeavor is more on how can we equip more and more people within the organization who are more conversant with the newer developments in technology, who are more conversant and adaptable to the ways of working which is evolving in this industry. And that's how we are trying to equip. Now, that can happen at 3 different levels. That is how we have defined it. One is more at an entry level. So how can we enhance as far as skilling freshers coming in from various levels of institutes and how do we make them more productive sooner? Second one is a set of individuals who are looking at making an industry transition. So might be the individuals are working at mid to senior levels in organizations which are non-renewable at this point in time and are willing to make that transition. How can we equip those individuals better? And third one is within the organization, we are about 13 years old organization. So how do we equip our homegrown talent to be more adaptable to newer developments in technology and therefore make the role transitions easier. So that's the way we are looking at it within the organization.
Talking to you, Jonathan, specifically if you look at the entire spectrum of oil and gas sector and renewable itself, how have you seen at the global level the future of work is changing and how people are being put into a different spectrum, especially the traditional, unconventional and conventional model of energy?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that we've contemplated a number of times. We've written 2 papers on this in the last 4 years related to the future of work and workforce of the future. The first thing to say, I think, is that we see jobs and skills required across energy, natural resources changing as certainly companies embrace technologies like AI. We do accept, though, that I think, as one of my esteemed colleagues was saying earlier, that it's far easier to retrain some of your internal teams than look to the market necessarily, because I would argue that some of the skills, particularly related to AI, are those that in essence are common. Data analytics, whether you're in a financial services institution, a transport organisation, a healthcare business, the core skills of data and analytics remain the same. It also means that if you are going to recruit those sorts of skills, what you need to think about is the translators that sit between the front line of the business, and that's good for people like me, because I think they're the grey-haired individuals, if I could use that term, who've got the experience that can translate what the field needs for some of those skill sets that sit inside. I suppose the second thing I'd say is the competition for talent, particularly in those traditional oil and gas spaces, is going to be very, very tight. And part of what's required there is a value proposition where I was, we'll use the term in Australia, it's the barbecue conversation. That moment when you're asked to what you do as a job and not be embarrassed about the fact you work for an organisation that still produces fossil fuels. And it's really equipping people with a story they can tell that enables them to speak confidently, which then means they like to be attracted. One of the large oil and gas majors used to have one of the best graduate programs in the world, where it was very difficult for you to get a position. That is much easier these days to get onto that program, which is symptomatic not only of the challenge, but also of the opportunity. And the last piece is one that people of my generation don't have a different attitude to, which is the new norm for the way people expect to work. A lot of the more junior people, a lot of the latest generations are comfortable in a post-COVID environment with working from home. And how do you then create a value proposition that accommodates for that and a way of working which permits that to occur? And so I think they're the sort of trends I'm seeing across the sector and the industry.
Shantanu, bringing you in, because you've been closely associated with policy and impact and energy transition, how do you see an impact on jobs specifically because of this AI and energy transition interface happening?
I think AI and jobs in that context is essentially we need to see it as opportunity. And there are two reasons for that in my opinion. One is, especially in the Indian context, if we see our energy demand is growing rapidly. So essentially every decade we need to double the size of our sector, which definitely requires significant amount of new sort of employees, new jobs are to be created. On top of that, in the Indian context, we also see that there is going to be explosion of data that is going to be captured and made available for analysis and use. Now for both these things, we just cannot imagine managing these two sort of explosions without having advanced technologies, without having technologies like AI, and just going beyond AI also, more importantly, integration of different technologies and different data sets. So managing this kind of opportunity requires significant reskilling of employees. Jobs, roles will definitely change, but I think we need to see this as opportunity and really prepare for that future. Otherwise, I can't really imagine that kind of demand growth that we are observing, kind of demand variations we are likely to see, kind of new technologies that we need to bring in to really manage this RE integration, how we can manage that without this kind of support by AI and other advanced technologies. So I really see this as an opportunity, but we need to really capitalize on that opportunity by being sort of preparing our sort of workforce much better and really creating those opportunities for people to gain those skills.
Ajay, just this, yeah, sure, please. Yeah.
So if I can just add here, and I think I can draw parallels from what has been happening, say, in the ITS industry. We have heard about it multiple times over, that automation is going to replace so many jobs. Or earlier when we were talking about the follow the sun model, and at that point in time, there will be job losses. But end of the day, both of them turned out to be opportunities with which one, number of jobs continued to grow, more and more business continued to flow in. It was only a question of how many people are we able to successfully transition into the newer way of working and with the newer skills. So I think that is where the opportunity comes in.
Added to that, because there were conventional energy jobs, and as Jonathan talked about the EVP. Now today you're not just hiring conventional operations managers, maintenance engineers, but you're also hiring data scientists. You're also hiring prompt engineering people, which is a very different world they were into. Now, bringing this new skill set, how does it kind of help you in terms of positioning your EVP very differently into the market?
So, to my mind, when we look at the green energy, I think we started making that entry into digital close to about 7-8 years back. So that was the first time when we started venturing into that space, and consistently we continued to build that, okay, what are the newer solutions, what are the newer point solutions that can be looked at. And we also looked at more from India-based opportunities as well as global solutions, because considering this industry is highly regulated, therefore quite a few of those solutions may not work in other geographies. So we have made those investments. We acquired an organization which is based out of Belgium, looking at certain solutions in those pockets of the world. And we have an in-house team that looks at the internal thing. So while yes, if we look at how the jobs are getting enriched and how the value proposition is changing, today, if I hire an engineer which is on the core side of the activity, can the person be subject matter expert on the developments of these technologies which are trying to provide that point solution? So I think those are things which are working better. There is quite a bit of cross leverage which is happening where people are getting exposed to. So for example, it's not that digital solutions is something which we are trying to do at our end, and those jobs are going to continue to be similar to an IT organization coming in and delivering the same solution to us. So in this case, the job is far different because the person can actually look and feel, get a sense of what is the person trying to solve for. And that's something which provides a very different perspective. So while we did see a challenge in the initial days in terms of building the team and trying to get the desired program managers, the solution developers, and all those things into the organization, but now that is something which has become relatively better. People who are trying to look for how the solution is working on the ground that they've created, I think those are the people who are migrating to us, and we are trying to build on that.
How's AI helping your field workforce? You know, what kind of training and development which is expected to be done? So is it really an enabler, or is it something which is threatening the jobs at the field level?
So not necessarily threatening the jobs at the field level, but people are definitely expected to understand few of those nuances. Now, example, the entire digital solutions that we have tried to create, whether it is a digital twin introduction within the organization or trying to look at the productivity across various assets that we have, I think those are things which pretty much are known sitting in the room. So I think sitting in the room, knowing specifically which turbine or which panel one needs to go down and fix, that's where the problem is. I think those are things which are the easier solutions which have started coming up. So vigilance has gone up, our coverage has gone up. So from that point of view, it is definitely helping. And how are we able to measure it much more minutely? That what percentage of radiation is getting captured versus not getting captured. I think those are data points which are far easily available and therefore can be addressed much more confidently and easily. What is the onus on the organization? For us, while we are trying to create those point solutions, I think onus is upon us to go across and train the individuals. And considering this entire wave, we do see that there is an inclination of people trying to understand those developments and trying to make themselves more comfortable with it. But we do need to make that effort in terms of getting people up to speed.
If I could just add to that, and I think ENRich mentioned this earlier, if you give some of our, the next generation of our people tools, they work out how to use them. And, you know, we've got Microsoft Copilot, as I'm sure many of people in the audience do. They find amazing ways to use it. And I caught one of them the other day. When I say caught, saw him the other day. He imported an email from a colleague that effectively was communicating with him in a certain style. In order to communicate with her effectively, he asked Copilot on rewriting his email in a style that would resonate with her. So part of me says, let's not constrain them too much in terms of, let's give them the tools, give them some parameters to work in, and they're so familiar with this new technology, they're going to find ways that we haven't even thought of to effectively interact with each other so they can operate more effectively, to work out solutions to some of the problems we face. And I think, you know, so part of this is a little, while you do give them guardrails, letting them go a little to work out how to effectively use the tools in the organisation to be effective. And then they feel more empowered. They feel like they've got then more opportunity to shape the way we do things. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second you let them free in the field to work out how to manage safety and systems, but I think they're so much more familiar with these tools than we are. I think by just having them available and showing them that you're embracing them, you automatically improve the EVP for them to want to participate in your organisation.
Shantanu, coming back to you, obviously, Mr. Murthy talked a lot about in terms of policy and what is government doing in terms of building capability. How do you see this kind of, what initiatives the policy and regulators need to make in terms of bringing in and enhancing the skill capability at a country level? What do you see as the policy changes which are expected, should be expected?
I think in terms of policy, rather I would say role of government agencies need to be more of enabler. And in the context of AI or sort of this integration of different technologies, primary area or immediate area where I think government can act as enabler is having clear data sharing policy and making data available for sort of researchers, for startups, for many other sort of actors in the ecosystem. Because unless that data is made available in a democratic manner, it will be very difficult to really build something meaningful. I understand that there are issues of privacy, there are issues of security, but beyond that, we as a sort of institution or as a country need to find out ways and means of addressing these concerns, but making data available, because unless data is available, many of these initiatives are not going to work. And just I want to add one more thing is, if you look at the energy sector, the structure of the industry is going to change dramatically in the next decade. It's going to be a lot more decentralized, whether it is in terms of generation sources or whether in terms of consumers having choice of getting supply from different suppliers. So that is going to open up a lot more new ideas and new opportunities for people to enter into the sector. So we shouldn't be looking at it from conventional job perspective. There's going to be opportunities for newer businesses at decentralized level. And that is again is going to be fueled by availability of this data and an enabling policy framework, which will allow these kind of new entrepreneurs to actually participate meaningfully in the sector's value chain, and not just for the purpose of meeting demand, but also improving consumer experience. Because ultimately, I think today if we ask consumers, then 90% of consumers would say, I don't want to engage with DISCOM. And unless we sort of address that concern, the sector is not going to be really viable and meeting consumers' expectation. So that is one area again where a lot of work needs to happen, and these technologies can help in that process.
So regulator kind of focusing on data and enabling data for better usage.
Creating sandboxes, allowing different kind of experiments and innovative measures to be tried out, tested, creating sort of a space for that is something that policy and regulation can do.
Ajay, when I was talking to earlier, you kind of talked about the three actors in this game. One is the academia, the other one is industry, and the third one is organization itself. So what is your expectation in terms of how these three actors play as we in the future of workspace specifically?
Sure. So today when we look at it from individuals' point of view, I think individuals are becoming more and more engaged on both, whether we talk about renewable energy in general or we are talking about AI interventions or the way they are going to influence the jobs. Second actor to my mind is more of the institutions or organizations like us, and third one is government or the enablement, and I will put academia also a part there. So to my mind, while industry is shifting rapidly into the renewable from the traditional sources, I think academia is yet to catch up. We don't see any specialized programs that have been launched. And it is not necessarily at the apex level that, okay, maybe a MBA or an engineering program getting diverted in that direction, but more at a grassroots level, because ITIs, diplomas, I think that sensitization and that curriculum development, so that is something which is still taking a bit of a slower start as compared to what is required by the industry. The way the headcount requirements are changing with the way the growth plan is for 2030, forget about 2050 for the time being. So even for 2030, I don't think we will be able to generate that many professionals to be able to support the type of growth that we are talking about. So from that point of view, academia and guidance. So in my job, I do visit campuses, and when we talk to people at ITI or diploma level are not even aware that there is an opportunity that exists from a green energy perspective. Forget about a specialized program getting launched to them. They are more than willing to go down and enroll for those programs if it is assuring that there's going to be a job, but I don't think that level of awareness exists. So I think somewhere educating the academia that this is an opportunity which is this large, and therefore it does make sense for us to have those specialized programs. So that's something which is critical. Yeah. Second actor, which is organizations like us, I think in some form or shape, it would continue to be being the bridge between the two. So how do we go across and help the curriculum development as well as helping that expert sessions at those institutes and all those things. So that is at one end. And on the other end, how do we look at enabling more and more people being able to make that cut and trying to get interested in this? So to my mind, that's how these three is.
I just wanted to pick up on one of your points, which I think is a really interesting dynamic. I can speak for Australia. I can't necessarily speak for the rest of the world on this. If you were to go to Australia now and you wanted to do a petroleum engineering course or a mining engineering course, you could probably only find 1 or 2 universities in Australia that offer that. So the irony in all of this, of course, is while we are heading towards energy transition, and to pick up on your point, I think it's the next generation that are driving us there more quickly by the choices they're making. And they're making choices not to do petroleum engineering, mining engineering. They're making choices to do data science. So I'd argue that creates 2 challenges for organisations that are involved in traditional fossil fuels. One is how to use AI to augment the fact that you're not going to have access to as many of the skilled workforce as you had. And if you look at the average age of some of your senior technical people in the industry, it's actually rising in the traditional forms. And so secondly, then how do you effectively make sure that you future-proof your business? And part of what we're seeing where businesses in Australia have a renewable part to their business and a traditional fossil fuel part to their business, there's a huge attraction for existing employees to want to move across to the renewable part of the business. So, you know, part of what might drive us a little faster than we might like to go at this stage is the choices the next generation are making about their education and where they want to work. And I think that creates an interesting challenge and dynamic for traditional oil and gas businesses that are working on that. And so I think one of the things we need to do in our companies is effectively create opportunities for the generations that are working there now to participate. And in KPMG, we've got a global program called Leaders 2050, which is giving a voice to the next generation of future leaders, as the name would suggest, and giving them an opportunity to contribute content, information to the debate in relation to this, to give them a voice so that from an employee value proposition, they feel empowered. So I think there's a nice challenge emerging for us in the future, and, you know, I'd like to see that happen.
So one of the themes we are clearly hearing is about reskilling, skilling, and orienting the old workforce from a conventional to a non-conventional energy skill set. One of the classic examples and a great example is Singapore itself, which kind of looked at the older workforce and then focused on investing a lot in reskilling of its entire, base of not only workforce but also as a country. Do you think that kind of an idea would be something which government should work on?
Yeah, I think that's something which is important because. And I will just take a real life example. So today we are setting up a manufacturing facility which is there at Dholera. And I was trying to visit institutes in and around. So I still see that there are ITIs who might be running 100% of their seats, which are not even technical, knowing fully well that Dholera is going to be such a large hub for industrial activity, and still there is no sensitization at the institute level that, okay, they can guide people. So when I was talking to students are more than willing that, okay, if there is a job which is going to fetch me this much amount, I'm definitely looking at those type of enrollments. So they are willing to make that switch even midway. But I don't think that sensitization exists. So I think.
Any idea, Shantanu, on this one? The government investment in terms of allowing not only workforce but organizations in terms of upskilling themselves?
Definitely, I think that's, essential if we have to have the kind of quality sort of workforce we need for the sector. Couple of additional ideas on that is, I think organizations, whether it is industry or government organizations, need to be really open about giving out live projects to academic institutions. Because I think that is where students will actually be able to feel, what the sector's requirement is, and they will have that sort of 6 months, 1 year time frame to actually learn, understand, and decide how they want to go about it. So that is one, really sort of significant emphasis on these live projects. And second is, we also need to have incubation centers at a much larger scale, because technology needs to be developed, different sort of programs needs to be developed. So those kind of incubation centers at a much larger scale is something that is again where industry and academia can come together to meet this requirement. So those are two
Jonathan,
specific
any
ideas.
viewpoint from any global organizations and your global experience?
Oh, listen, I think that what academia ultimately has to work out is what are the future courses that are going to be needed for the environment we're moving into. And I think part of the responsibility of organisations involved in industry is to educate them on what it is they're going to need from a skill set perspective. How you then avoid the ultimate challenge we face, which is many of the future generations aren't going to want one career. They're going to want to have many. So your ability to keep them in the company for long periods of time, and the number of people I meet across, I've been in recently in the US, the UK, Netherlands, and obviously Australia, and now India, is you've had people who've had 30 and 40-year careers in one organisation. That's not going to be the way of the future. So how we get used to that is going to be some challenges. I've always been someone that likes a bit of tension, though, and I think the tension that exists between the future generations and their expectation of the type of work they're going to do and where they're going to do it, combined with the reality of what we're facing into and how we need to face into it, mean that we can't remain static. And I kind of like that tension because it does move us forward productively. I don't look at this as a threat, I see it as an opportunity. And I think the opportunity for companies and organisations is to work out how they embrace it. And, I just wish I was 25 years younger because I think it'd be a pretty interesting time to be entering the workforce and thinking about the choices you've got.
So maybe a workable solution, just to add on that one, could be that today when we look at maybe various apprenticeship programs, those are looked at more from an employer's point of view. Do we look at it from the student's point of view, that okay, something like this is mandatory. Today it is more binding on the employer. So that could be one simple change which can start helping on that front in terms of orienting people. Similarly, when we look at maybe our engineering programs or diploma programs, quite a few of them have got very limited internship exposure. Can it be moved to more of a global standard where a semester or 2 semesters get into that, where an individual can work with an organization of their own choice or their industry and all those things and get that orientation? So I think that becomes extremely limited in our current education system.
So great insights and great idea, and I think it is, as we look at the target of almost 3.4 million workforce coming into the energy segment, the partnership of academia, the partnership of government regulators, the partnership of industries, and organizations like ours in terms of the consulting organizations would really help in terms of bringing in the right skill and getting the right talent up front. And also in terms of how do we kind of make sure that we are able to create an environment where we are able to look at diverse skill set coming into the sector and therefore transform the energy sector and itself. So thank you so much for your insights. I know we are taking time away from the lunch of the people, so thank you everybody for being part of this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Reena and esteemed panel members, for such an engaging discussion. I would now request Com O'Neill to kindly hand over memento to our panelists. Very much. So now can I request all of you to kindly proceed for lunch, and we expect to see you back here by 2:45. Thank you very much.